Good morning. My name is Brent Devitt, and on behalf of Ascension Parish, I'm pleased to welcome you all here. A few months ago, some principals of the Miami Valley were gathered together, and we discussed the need for in-service in the area of the new core curriculum in reading and language arts, and on that day was hatched this idea of bringing together some professionals, all of us together, to study the new core curriculum. So we have a number of people to thank, and I'll thank one in particular in just a second, but a few housekeeping things. We are working on the temperature. There is Mass going on upstairs at 9 o'clock, and we compete for the air for a little while. I have set things down. Gradually it should get better. Sorry that it wasn't just to the right temperature to begin our day, but we will work on that. Restrooms, as you came down the steps at the entrance of the church, there are two sets of restrooms, men and women on this side. There is a single restroom over here, out this door. Straight ahead as you go out the door, there's a restroom there as well. So we will have Mass later on. We'll be joining the rest of the parishioners. The parishioners were very excited to see so many cars. They couldn't believe what was going. Wow, this is a big crowd today. And the usher reminded me too, they are passing the basket around and collecting money. But don't feel obligated necessarily if you're not a member of the parish to contribute at all. We are joining for Mass together at noon today, so that's a great way to start our year with the liturgy and in Christ. So I'm going to now thank Susan Ferguson from the University of Dayton, who helped spearhead and put this all together. And we want to thank her for her role in putting this all together. Let's thank Susan.
Go ahead and start.
Yeah, you're ready.
Thanks, Brent, so much. And thanks to Ascension. This is my home parish, and that's not why we're here. But this is a lovely facility, and we are so pleased that all of you are with us today. I think it's significant that we're meeting on August 15th, the Assumption of Mary. As you probably know, the University of Dayton was founded by the Marianists. And Mary is just a very important person to the Marianists because she leads us to Jesus. So if you remember, Mary said yes. She was an unmarried pregnant woman who said yes to be the mother of Jesus. In some ways, we're asking you to be Mary today. Common Core is new, and those of you who have been around for a long time, you know, oftentimes we're tempted to say it's one more new thing, but this isn't. This is research-based. The folks who worked on Common Core were teachers, were administrators, were university people as well. But teachers had a large role in what these Common Core standards are. We looked at global curriculum because, as many of you know, and you hear it all the time, the United States is falling behind. And even though we know faith formation is most important in a Catholic school, that's number one. But academic excellence is very important. Parents are not going to send their children to us if we're not academically excellent schools. Do we have a fantastic reputation? Absolutely. Are we going to swallow Common Core hook, line, and sinker without looking at Catholic identity? Absolutely not. That's what Carol Roberts has done. And actually, she was in the forefront. The Archdiocese of Cincinnati led the way in terms of looking at Common Core and Catholic identity. So, what we're asking you today is to come here with an open heart and an open mind on a day you don't have school and say, yes, I'll listen. And I'm going to see how this makes sense for me and my classroom. Whether you teach reading and language arts, religion, math, science, we are all teachers of reading. So, per usual, I am humbled to be in your presence. You are the people who taught my 3 sons, and I hope teach my grandchildren. You are on the front line every day. So please understand that this professional development is done in the spirit of respect for you and for what you offer children every day. And most importantly, you do it in the spirit of faith. So in light of that, I wanted to share with you just a part of a slideshow. Some of us were able to go on a retreat with the St. Remy group, and we were introduced to the Faces of Mary. So I wanted to share with you a few of the pieces of artwork that were shared with us, and then we'll conclude with a Hail Mary. So I'll just kind of run these by so that you can see them. So the church gives insights into Mary throughout the liturgical year. Each feast, each memorial is a sign of the love, gratitude, and high esteem the church has for the Mother of God. Today we celebrate Mary's Assumption into heaven. Let us pray the Hail Mary together as we view these pictures of Mary. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Let us have a blessed day. I'd like to introduce to you our facilitators for this morning, Dr. Jackie Marshall Arnold and Dr. Mary Kate Sableski. These are women who were raised in Catholic schools, who went to the University of Dayton and were my students, and who both went on to Ohio State University to earn their doctorates. These are very special women. Their children attend Catholic schools. They are fully committed to Catholic education. Some of you perhaps have been to their picture book read-in, and as we sponsor that next year, we hope that you will return. They've also done writing camps, and they work often with professional learning communities. So please join me in welcoming them and thanking them for being with us today.
Good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and confess, though, that this is a little overwhelming to us. So here we are with friends that we are so glad to see, friendly faces, and new friends that we're looking forward to get to know over the next year. And with that, let us go ahead and say right off the bat, why are we here? We're here, as Susan said, because we're committed to Catholic education, we're committed to reading, we're committed to helping you with Common Core. That commitment is beyond today. When someone came and asked us if we would do this, we said, well, it can't be a one-shot deal. We do not believe in professional development that is a one-shot deal. You come, you get a little bit, you leave, and you go home and you go, what did she say? I kind of forget. Oh, well, it must not have been important. When we said we would not do a one-shot deal, we thought we'd get out of it. It didn't happen. We're okay with that. We're thrilled with that, actually. We're here to work with you over the year, over the next year, however long it takes, to stand by you, to make the commitment to help you integrate Common Core. Let me go ahead and say, I don't think it's going to be easy. I don't think it's going to be as hard as we sometimes think it might be. Does that make sense? So we're going to stick together, and we're going to go through this one step at a time. All right?
So we're going to spend a little bit of the day today first talking to you about the Common Core standards and what they mean and their history and kind of just going over the structure of them. It is set up a lot differently than the old standards. So we want to make sure you're familiar with the structure and the format. You've got lots of books in front of you. And we want to first stop and publicly thank our friends Colleen Bromack and Amy McDonald from two of your schools who helped us, who didn't help us, who did, put together the picture book reading list this year for us. And the books here are a result of their work. So we want to just take a minute and thank them for the resources that they're using. Oh, and don't, on that line, please don't leave here with a book, because as you can see, they're from the library. So it'll be important for us to get those back to the library at the end of the day, and important to Colleen and Amy. Yeah, so we want to go over the agenda for the day and just talk with you about what we're going to be engaged in. We're starting off here, as I said, with just kind of an overview of what's happening in Common Core. We want to introduce ourselves to you, of course. we are here because we want to learn and dig into the standards. So our goal, and as Jackie and I talked about what we would do this day, has always been to keep you engaged in the work and make sure it's meaningful to you, so that, again, as Jackie said, you don't leave here and go, I don't remember anything that happened. So we want to make this practical and a useful use of your time. So hopefully that'll happen for you as we have opportunities to work in grade level groups and in school teams throughout the day.
You're gonna hold us accountable that we're gonna stop at about 11:45 to make sure you have time to transition, go to the bathroom, and be at Mass at noon. So our morning is gonna be filled with a little bit of an overview of what Common Core is and what it is not. Let's get that elephant in the room out of the way, so to speak. We're gonna engage in some activities with the books to let you experience some of the standards in what we think are some meaningful ways. You'll let us know at the end. We'll take a break somewhere in there and have some time for you to get together in grade levels to talk as grade levels about what is the same. There are some things that are the same, so let's celebrate what's the same, and then let's talk about what's different. We'll stop, as I said, for Mass and lunch. If you want to go to lunch, we're going to ask that you, when you come, I'm sorry, if you want to go to Mass, pardon me, we ask that when you come back, you're going to be ready to kind of eat your lunch and keep working. How many times as a teacher have you done that? And so I'm going to start your year off right away with that again, right? So we're going to, if you want to go to Mass, come back, have lunch. That'll be the time where you get together in your schools. Now that you've met as a grade level, let's come back together as schools and talk about, as a team, as a staff, what's this going to look like and what kind of commitments are we going to make for the first year. I used the metaphor with someone the other day. We're going to take steps. We're going to get you're going to decide as a school, but you might decide to get your toes wet this year. You might decide to get your ankles wet next year. You might see what I mean? So as a team, as a staff, we want you to make those decisions together. We're going to come back together and do a little bit of debrief at the end, and then we're going to ask your literacy leaders or a representative from your school to stay, and we're going to talk with you briefly about what the remainder of the year will look like. And we're going to get and back to the when will this be over? Today, if you're not a literacy leader, we're going to try to end at 2:30 and then have that 2:30 to 3 time to meet with our literacy leaders. But that's back to my main message. Don't shoot the messenger right away. It's not going to be over. We're going to stay with you the rest of the year and beyond. All right? Everybody okay with that? One of Mary Kate and I's rules, by the way, rules, structure, standard, what do we, when you need to get up and go to the bathroom, please get up and go to the bathroom. We're going to be doing a lot of work, but there's going to be a lot of activities, there's going to be a lot of time. And how many bathrooms are there? I think there are 5. It's going to be a little ugly if you try to all wait until break time. So please feel free, get up when you need to get up, walk around when you need to walk around. And if you at any point have a question, please feel free to stop us. We welcome your questions, we welcome your input. It's all part of today's work. All right? Are we ready? Will you hit the, so I'm going to do the overview. Are you willing to advance those slides? Because you want me to do this part, right? Tell me, I'm sorry. Oh, shoot. Mary Kate is reminding me that I guess I didn't really introduce myself and how I'm here, but Susan did. I guess that's why I skipped that. So my name is Jackie Marshall Arnold. I apologize. This is important because my undergrads, I often do my introduction, and then they look at me after I'm done and go, but did you really teach? And I say, yes, I really taught. I'm sorry, let me back up and tell you more about my introduction. So I am a graduate of St. Bridget and Carroll High School and the University of Dayton. My daughter actually is at her second day of Carroll High School and had her legacy picture taken yesterday, so a little shout out, so sorry. Don't hurt me. But I am a little proud, as you can imagine. My 2 sons go to St. Bridget, and we have lived in the area pretty much our entire life. PhD from Ohio State, and I now teach the literacy courses at the University of Dayton with Mary Kate.
Being not originally from Dayton, I just always want to make sure that we know so many of you, and we've had the opportunity to work with so many of you, but I know that not everybody maybe knows us, so I just wanted to make sure we took a moment to say who we were and so that you would know, as Jackie said, that I guess we come here with some experience and knowledge to share, we're hoping. So I'm Mary Kate Sableski. I'm originally from Chicago. And I came to the University of Dayton as an undergrad and actually met my husband while I was student teaching at Precious Blood School with Becky Cornett, who I don't know if you're in the room, Becky, but what'd you say? Oh, darn. So, yeah, I will never forget the first day of my student teaching. I walked in and she said, I have this guy you have to meet. And I thought, I'm here to teach. I'm not here to meet a guy. But meet the guy I did. And so stayed in Dayton and taught here. And as you know, the rest, went to UD for my master's, went to Ohio State. And I think everybody knows that my husband is the principal of Carroll, so I'm realizing that we come with this Carroll thing, but we also have strong ties to both the other schools, as my husband worked at Alter for a while, as so many of you know, and of course the Marianist ties to CJ, and all the schools here are special and important to us, so I just wanted to make sure.
I love that. I love that. Actually, I wanted you to say the line, meet the guy I did and marry the guy I did. And 4 children later, all now at Holy Angels. What a great place for them to be as well. Okay, so let's just talk very, very, very briefly about Common Core and where it came from, okay? Because there is some stuff out there, right? You might have heard it, and if you haven't, talk to me later, but there's some stuff out there. And so we want you to have a grounding on Common Core, where it came from, what it is, and what it is not, all right? So developed for K-12 schools across the nation. Governors from both political parties kind of spearheaded this, got a variety of people in a room, developed those standards, and they have been put out there for 40-plus states at this point. If you're watching the news, there's a little bit of pushback, all right? And there are a lot of reasons for that, and that would not necessarily be our focus for the day, but we want you to know there is that little bit, all right? We think these standards are meaningful. I'm actually, after I have studied these pretty extensively most of my summer, I took a 2-week trip out west in an RV with my husband and 3 children, and these things went with me so that when I was driving across the state of Idaho, because guess what, there's not a lot to see across the state of Idaho, I was studying Common Core standards. And there are some really exciting things to be found in here, all right, and we're going to look at those today. So a primary purpose of Common Core is to get our students ready. Whether it's for college or whether it's for the workforce, we need to have a commitment that together our students are ready, all right? And to do that, okay, we're going to include writing and speaking that's based on evidence and research. There is an emphasis in Common Core about nonfiction reading, all right? There's a misunderstanding about that, but we're going to talk about that as we go, all right? 4th grade, half of what students should be reading should be nonfiction, all right? That's what Common Core would like. And in high school, that increases to 70%. But that's not surprising, right? Here's my Julia, who went to school yesterday. She's in Spanish, she's in social studies. I'm gonna go blank because I don't know her schedule by heart now. She's in math, she's in biology. Most of her day does have a nonfiction theme to it, all right? Trust me, I'm making sure she's in an English class, have no doubt, right? Who am I? But most of her day does have a nonfiction theme, all right? And we're going to make sure that we're reading across the curriculum. We're going to use English. We're going to include vocabulary. We're going to have grammar. And then we're going to talk about those authentic performance-based assessments that all can be part of Common Core. The English Language Arts Standards, which is our focus of the day. Where are my friends in the room that I was hearing out of the corner of my ear that were having a math conversation? There was something about improper fractions that somebody was talking about, and I got a little worried that you thought this was a math Common Core workshop. I am not a math person. So our focus today is the English Language Arts, and Common Core has set that up in 4 strands: reading, writing, speaking and listening, and language. They're puzzle pieces that are going to go together. We wanted you to see just kind of a graphic of how that's laid out, and if you have your handout, there was a 1-page handout that's front to back. So sorry. This is why no one wants to sit in the front, because I steal your stuff the entire day long. It says Common Core Standards Cheat Sheet, and on the back it kind of has an overview of what, thank you, those standards are going to look like, all right? The 4 strands that I just mentioned: reading, writing, speaking, listening, language. Then there are going to be topics. You can see those on your handout. And then the standard statements by grade level. There is common themes across. So you'll hear the words, you can read the standards vertically and you can read them horizontally. See, I said I wasn't a math person, and here we go with math, academic language. You can read them across, you can read them horizontally to see how students are going to grow, how it's all going to build, if you will, and then vertically, did I get my directions right? To see what your standards are. And we're going to, if you haven't brought them today, we're going to help you see that as we go. Does that make sense? Everybody all right? All right. So I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have had that build. So this is what I was just saying. So those strands are the major areas. The topic is going to give you that major focus. And then the standard statements are the what students should know. Here is a shift in Common Core. It's the next slide, I think. One of the major shifts, and that's another little pretty visual to help you see it. All right, sorry, MK. Yeah, next one. Sorry, next one. I want that one. Here are some of the key components that we want you to know that are central to what Common Core is. All right? There is that strong focus on comprehension. If we want our students to be lifelong learners, to be successful in whatever their workplace is, they have to be able to comprehend text of all kinds. So that's crucial. Common Core asks for our students to be stronger at analyzing texts, all kinds of texts, to not read them and just keep moving, but to actually think about it, question it, criticize it, and then determine their own takeaways. There's that piece where we're going to ask for students, and we're going to ask you today, to really quote and cite examples from the text. We're going to talk about close reading, if you've heard that word for Common Core. There's integrating information across text, and if you notice, we literally have text across your table, right? We're going to use those texts. Phonemic awareness happens in kindergarten, first grade. Phonics is happening primarily in K2. There's always the piece of fluency, and those should feel, I bet, pretty familiar. Is there anything there that is too shocking? I don't think so. You're going to tell me at some point, but I don't think there's anything there that's too shocking for us. And then let's talk about writing just a little bit, because writing is huge in Common Core. All right, we're going to talk about this throughout the day. Student writing in your classrooms, 1/3 give or take narrative, 1/3 information, and 1/3 persuasion, argument, analysis. Nonfiction is beginning in kindergarten. Research writing is beginning in kindergarten. They can do it. They can do it. And we're going to help you, all right, look at ways that they can do that. And then by grade 4, we're hoping students, all right, are using evidence to support what they write. And again, my Logan's coming up to 4th grade with a phenomenal teacher who has always held nonfiction writing central to her work, and she'll be able to use that, all that's come before, to help him use evidence to support what he writes. And again, that's what we want children to do. We don't want them to make up stuff. We don't want it to come from nowhere, all right? So we're just using those good pieces to help them grow. Key components of speaking and listening, nothing too new. They're going to discuss, they're going to take turns, they're going to ask questions, they're going to respond to each other, all right? They're going to use complete sentences. That happens in my house 90% of the time, but we're always working to make sure it's 100% of the time. And drawing pictures and diagrams to support their ideas. That's the speaking and listening. And then last, the language. The language, when you hear language, I kind of think of the speaking and listening, but they're using language a little differently. Common Core is about using standard English, about making sure it's proper grammar, proper pronunciation, proper punctuation, and then this is where all of the vocabulary pieces come in. Many of you have already started work to integrate academic language, so we're going to keep building right on that. Here's central to Common Core. This is the buzzword, if you will, that you hear all the time, but if there's one piece you leave with today, all right, a key requirement is that they can comprehend text of what they're calling steadily increasing text complexity. We're going to push the envelope a little bit, if you will. We always want to be helping students write, grow, and grow, and grow. And so that requires that they have authentic, quality literature that will help them push and grow. And we're going to talk about ways that we can make that happen. Why now? Because right now I know somewhere in hopefully just a teeny tiny part of your mind, but maybe more than I would like to admit, you're really thinking about being in your rooms and what you need to get done for tomorrow and what you need to get done for Monday and what, right? I understand. Trust me, trust me, trust me. As soon as we get done today, I've got a pretty long list of everyone in my life that I have put off. Sorry, wait till Thursday evening and I'll get back to you. I know, Mary Kate and I know this is a hard time, it's a busy time, but it is the right time to start talking about Common Core and that we need to dig in deep and really help our kids be successful in life. As a nation, there are students that aren't there. I can tell you, I'm so sorry, at the University of Dayton, with a pretty nice price tag to it, not that I ever see that, but we have a number of students who come not ready. They're not ready to read the complex texts. They're not ready to look across them. They're not ready to cite evidence. And so they end up in kind of a support class to try to catch them up and get them ready. We'd like, as a society, I think, to get that gap eliminated so that all of our kids, every single one of them, is ready to be successful. You get to click on the link. Any questions? Everybody okay with that little quick, here's what Common Core is and here's what we're going to get to what Common Core is not. But Mary Kate, remember we're reading teachers? She's going to read to you first.
This is what we always do, is sit everybody down and read them a picture book. This is a big group. I've never read a picture book to this large of a group. So we have tried to give you a resource up there on the screen so that you can see the pictures and see the book. I think one of the biggest pieces that, as Jackie was summarizing about the Common Core, is if you're constantly thinking of that college and career readiness, that we're always thinking, and it's a shift, that we're always thinking about what they're going to need to be able to do when they get there. This is new, right? This is something that we're having to adopt. And anytime there's change, there's two different ways to respond to that change. So I'm going to read you this story and see if you can keep that idea of change in your mind. Now, you're going to have to help me. We'll figure it out.
Here, put it here.
Okay. There you go. We have this microphone in our hands, and we're trying to. So this story is called Rain by Linda Ashman, and the pictures are by Christian Robinson. And this is a recent book from the Picture Book Read-In. So, okay. So on the first page there, he's saying, rain. Next page, a little boy says, rain. Nasty galoshes. It's raining cats and dogs. He says, blasted overcoat. It's raining frogs and pollywogs. There goes my hair. Hippity hop. This reminded me of my, all of my little children, by the way, and the way they respond to rain and days like that. Good morning, sir. Hardly. Dang, puddle. Good morning, young man. Ribbit. We actually have a frog costume in our house that our kids have all worn, I think, outside on a rainy day. So, enjoy your paper. Just more bad news. How are you, Mr. Frog? Hoppy, hoppy, hoppy. Finally, there they are at the Rain or Shine Cafe. And the little boy says, we're here. Coffee, black. Cocoa and cookies, please. There's the man. And the little boy says, yum. And the mom says, delicious. And notice the man is saying nothing, but with a grumpy expression on his face. The little boy kind of bumps into the old man, and he says, watch out. And the little boy says, sorry. And then here he is, sitting here at the table. Oh, sorry, this one is next. So he says, "Ribbit," hands the old man his cookie, "Ribbit." And the old man gives him a shrug and a grumpy expression and walks away and doesn't take the cookie. And the little boy, of course, is sad, right? Looks down on the ground and says, "His hat." Picks up the hat, runs out the door. "Hey, wait. You?" And then I love this. The little boy has the old man's hat on with a grumpy expression on his face saying, "You." The old man takes the hat, says to the little boy, "That one too. Mine?" Frog hat. Old man puts the frog hat on. Little boy says, "Ribbit," giving him the cookie again. So now we're back to that. The old man takes it happily. "Yum!" And they're waving goodbye. And notice it stopped raining. "Welcome back, sir." "Ribbit," he says. So through that story, we want to ask you to think about the Common Core state standards. And you can choose to think about them from this perspective of the old man, okay? That it's just another rainy day that messes with your hair, that gets in the way of you getting places, or like the little boy dressed in the frog costume, enjoying the day, hoppy, 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 jumping in puddles, okay? So we can choose to think about the Common Core state standards like a curmudgeon, okay? That old man is a curmudgeon. And we can say, these Common Core state standards, have all kinds of negative things to them. They're ruining my day, okay? Take a minute with the people at your table and brainstorm 3 ways to look at the Common Core state standards as a curmudgeon, okay? With that grumpy expression on your face. Take a minute and brainstorm those 3 ways. So take off those curmudgeon hats. I don't want you to leave those curmudgeon hats on too long for the day. But let's think about those curmudgeon ways to look at the Common Core state standards. I think we'll just show them. Here's some we brainstormed. I'm sure that yours are similar and probably have additional ideas as well. The standards raise the bar and place specific groups of students at a disadvantage to be successful. So one way to look at the Common Core state standards is that they do raise the bar of achievement. They are asking for more. And I have to tell you, when I first heard that, I didn't quite believe it. I thought, they're just another set of standards. How high can they raise the bar? But as I dug into them and saw, it does indeed raise the bar. You're asking for more from your students. And so a curmudgeon way to look at those standards is to say, but that's not fair. We've got students in poverty. We've got students in other kinds of situations that make it very difficult for them to achieve those standards. How can we widen that achievement gap even more by raising the bar? That's one curmudgeon-y way to look at that. The standards require a commitment of resources that will be expensive for schools to implement. Okay? That's been one reaction to the Common Core. How can I raise the bar without more materials, without better materials, without different materials? This is going to be expensive at a time when schools are very strapped for budgets. And a third way is to say the standards assume that all students will need college-ready skills beginning at the youngest grades. Okay, remember I said that. That is one of kind of the common threads of the Common Core, that we're thinking that all along that these skills are preparing students for college and careers. And that we're saying in kindergarten, really, in kindergarten, we're thinking about how they need to look across text and how they need to cite evidence, really, in kindergarten. Okay, that's a curmudgeon-y way to look at that. And those are ideas that are out there, that are floating around out there. And I'm sure you have others or have heard others that are negative, and that we can get weighed down in that we can spend our time getting weighed down in the standards that way, and say this is really ruining my day, okay, ruining my hair, right, bad hair day now, because of these standards, and I've got to go in and change the way I teach. So now we want to think about the standards from the perspective of the little boy, okay? Hoppy, hoppy, hoppy. We want to think about those standards as if they are gold, okay? And this is something we can tell students as well, by the way, that you can read a text as if you are a curmudgeon, or you can read a text as if it is gold, okay? With all kinds of feeling and emotion in your voice as you engage with that text. So now, take off that curmudgeon hat, put on the frog hat, be happy, 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 and think about those standards as if they are gold. Okay? And brainstorm with your group 3 different ways to look at those standards as if they are gold, as if they are the most wonderful thing to happen to your school year. Okay. Feel a little better now? Took off that curmudgeon hat, put on something a little happier. I think this is a good sign when I could pull you back quickly from the curmudgeon talk, but I can't pull you back from the gold talk. You're so engaged in the positive sides of these standards. Hello. So we want to show you. I love that I couldn't pull you back from the gold talk, but I could pull you back from the curmudgeon talk real quickly. That means that you were so engaged in talking about how this is going to impact your instruction in a meaningful way. Because guess what? Just like the story, the rain was there whether the old man wanted it or not, and whether the little boy wanted it or not. It was there, right? And so how do you choose to look at it? That's this. Okay, these are here. Okay, the time for saying, no, we don't want them is that door is kind of closed. They're here, and they're here to stay, so we need to make a choice about how to look at them. So here are 3 gold ways to look at these standards. And again, I'm sure you brainstormed different things or similar things. I heard some great conversations as I walked around. The standards invite a focus on deep comprehension of complex text, the use of the writing process, and the connection between reading and writing. They invite a focus on deep comprehension, the writing process, and the connection between reading and writing. These are all things that we know to be best practice, okay? To be research-based best practice instruction for students who are learning to read and write, okay? These are all ways that we know that students can become lifelong readers and writers and carry that with them into wherever they go once they leave your door. So they really invite that focus. The standards respect the professional judgment of teachers, however, to implement them in classrooms. The standards are very clear throughout the document that they are not a prescription of what and how to teach, okay? But rather a framework of standards to know how to structure and guide students towards that ultimate goal of being lifelong readers and writers. They're not telling you that you need to teach about frogs, and so go teach about frogs, and here are all the little details and ways to do it, okay? They respect, and they say this throughout the document, that they respect the professional judgment, and I went into this with as much skepticism as anyone when I first started looking at these, but I find this to be true, okay? That you as the teacher are invited to take this document and use it to guide your instruction and to structure your classroom in a way that can really raise the bar. And they support cross-curricular literacy teaching. So for years, decades, a long time, you've heard every teacher is a teacher of reading, right? You've heard that and you've heard that and you've heard that. And we say that's true. Of course that's true. But the standards no longer say, gee, it'd be great if every teacher were a teacher of reading, and we really hope that the social studies teachers and the science teachers will teach reading and writing in their classrooms. The standards state that it must happen. The standards really support that, and they allow you to have a framework for making that happen within your schools, and we think that's really exciting. So those are 3 gold ways to look at the standards. We hope, of course, that you choose the frog hat when you're spending the rest of your day and the rest of your year digging into the standards. We know that there will be days when you'll put on the curmudgeon hat and say, I don't like this. I want it to stop raining. I want this to go away. Okay? But we hope that at the end of the day, you'll at least try that frog hat back on and see how it works.
I did not pay this person, but was I the luckiest person in the world that the first teacher I walked up to and said, what was your gold standard, said back to me that I can help my students learn to read math. My PE people in the room, my art people in the room, my music people in the room that might have looked at your principal with a tilt of the head and said, really? Do I really have to go? All right, yes, I know you've given a day, I know every day is precious, but we are thrilled that you are here. because Common Core standards are requiring that you have your students read about the content of your discipline. So whether they're reading about an artist, whether they're reading about a composer, whether they're reading about an athlete, all right, whether they're reading about the game, the sport, you see where I'm going. The Common Core standards are asking every person in your building to step up and help our students read across text, read across evidence, read across your content. What an interesting time right now where I am completely bombarded with forms to be filled out for my children about concussions. This is a drive right now, right? Where are my physical education people in the room? This is a big deal. What a great time to step up with our students, talk about it, read about it, discuss it. Where did it come from? Why did it come from it? What should we be looking for in our friends, oops, I'm so sorry, who are nearby and might be in trouble? What's the legislation? Why the legislation? Do you see where I'm going? Right? It's all driven in your content. It's all your choice. But it's that having our students read evidence, read text, analyze, think for themselves, make arguments, and support where they're going as a lifelong learner. So they come to wherever that place is in their life ready. You all right with that? How'd I do? I'm trying to sell. I hope you're buying. You're going to let me know at the end of the day. All right? Okay, so we want to talk a little bit about that in terms of what are the standards, what are the possibilities? Okay? Try to keep on the frog hat, try to keep on the gold component, and let's talk about the possibilities, and let's get some of the myths and misconceptions taken care of. Okay? These slides, by the way, are from a colleague of ours, Kathy Short, who is at the University of Arizona and has been a leader in Common Core work as well, and we're very gracious that she was sharing some of her work with us. So for students in Common Core, we're going to read and comprehend a range of complex texts. That's a big word that you're going to hear over and over again. The possibility behind that is that we now can increase the use of informational text in our classroom. Here's something that I think you know, but kids like to read informational texts. They love them, usually. Not every kid. I don't mean to make that standardization, but typically they eat them up. Look around the room, all right, and we are predominantly women, right? Sorry, guys. And as women, we tend to like narrative texts. Those are stereotypes, those are generalizations, but there is research that shows we tend to fill our classrooms with things we like to read. And that tends to be narrative texts, all right? The possibility of Common Core is to ask us to shift our mindset and start thinking about all the ways that we could use nonfiction. The myth is that Common Core does not value literature, all right? Literacy fiction narratives, okay? That's not true. It increases the amount of informational text that students will read as they go through the grades, but that's just a reality. That's why I gave you Julia's example. The reality is they read more and more informational text as they go through the grades, and we need to prepare them for that, all right? And the misunderstanding sometimes is that that narrative is a type of discourse, and it's always ingrained in everything we do, all right? Another component of Common Core is that we're going to read literary and informational texts of increasing complexity. That means that we're going to challenge readers with thought-provoking texts, all right? The myth about that is that if you've looked at Common Core, they do have some examples, some exemplars in the back, in the appendix, okay? The myth has grown that those are the texts, that those are what you have to use, right? That is a myth. You can select the text of your choice. They're giving you some exemplars. I'll tell you the truth. Some of them I like and some of them I don't. All right? So I'm sure you're probably going to be the same way. Choose the ones you like. All right? There's also a myth that they were determined by Lexile levels. That's a little bit of a myth. They were selected, one component of the selection was a Lexile level, but there were other factors that went into making those selections. All right? And then the misunderstanding sometimes happens. that requiring that complex text will create readers who can handle difficulty. Just because we require it doesn't mean it's going to happen, all right? And so we're going to talk about all the ways that we're going to support students in making that happen, all right? 3-part model for measuring text complexity. So just so you know, there are those components that were put into the work that was done, all right, to help select texts. Do you like that? Some more about text complexity. A student found that for me, and I just loved it because it's talking about when we choose text for students, we have to consider the qualitative, i.e. what's the content, what's it about, how hard is it? The quantitative, which is about how many syllables, how many sentences, how complex of a syntax structure does it have, and then what's the student's background knowledge? Where are they at, and will they be able to handle that? That little pyramid is all about considering all 3 of those in choosing what is right for your students to read. The Common Core requires close reading involving citing evidence from text. You're going to hear Mary Kate and I. This is a hard shift for us, and we're going to talk about why, all right? The possibility there is that students read carefully, they engage in discussions, and that take them into the text. The myth is that we have to ask these literal leveled questions that come directly from the text, okay? And the misunderstanding is that it does not include text analysis. Common Core is asking us to shift away a little bit from that very personal, your first instinct of a personal response to a text. Okay, so with rain, you might have instantly thought about, rain. It hasn't rained in a while. Have I watered my grass? You made a personal connection, but you kind of wandered off from the text. All right? Common Core is going to ask you to hold on to that personal reaction and stay with the text a little bit longer before you start making those personal connections, so to speak. That's the misunderstanding part. Common Core is going to ask you to look across texts, and so those are some examples of ways that you could do that, and that's why we have the books at your tables for you. All right? We're going to talk about how to pair books, fiction and nonfiction, so that we're not going with the myth that it doesn't use fictional texts. And so it comes down to readers and tasks, all right? That our students' ability to read complex text does not always happen linearly. I told you I wasn't a math person. Wouldn't it be great if it did, all right? But it doesn't. It gets messy. That students are going to need to read above and below, and they're going to need support. And that even though our students that are on course for college are likely to need more scaffolding as they go. All right?
So I think this, a piece of that that's really important is that it's critical to choose those complex texts for your students and to make sure that they're matched to them through level, through interest, through task, and really make sure that. But then just giving them that complex task, of course, as you all know so deeply, doesn't make them a better reader, right? That they need that close structure to engage in what we're going to call, what the Common Core is calling here, that close reading. But it is an emphasis on continuing to move students up those levels of complexity. And that's another gold item of the standards. That we can now say, you know, you as a student are at this level, and I'm going to move you up your levels of complexity, whereas you over here, you're at a different level, and I'm going to be able to move you up your levels of complexity, all within that same structure of close reading. So this is our, we've made this point, but the standards make references to particular forms of content, but they do not enumerate all or even most of the content that students should learn. So think back to the example that I gave you about the frogs. The standards must therefore be complemented by a well-developed, content-rich curriculum consistent with the expectations laid out in the Common Core state standards. The standards do not tell you what to teach. Okay, or how to teach. They give you a guideline of where students should be headed. Okay, so it's critical that teachers complement that with this very rich curriculum focused on content that students can look across texts and levels of text complexity. Do we want to pull that link now or not? We have this link here that Jackie's going to pull up that will show you an example of a project that was done on the Catholic school standards, and there are some, we think, pretty well done units of study here that you can use as examples in developing your Common Core curriculum with a Catholic identity focus. So that's the website, www.catholicschoolstandards.org. /Common Core, and we just want to encourage you to go to visit that website and to look through the resources they have. Because again, back to the idea that the Common Core state standards cannot stand alone, that we as teachers need to complement them with that very rich curriculum. And of course, as Catholic school teachers, you want to complement that with a rich curriculum with a focus on Catholic identity. Yeah, we'll show you it later when we work through that technical issue. Okay. Now we want to model for you and take everybody through an example of close reading. You picked up as you walked in an article. It's a one-page article, and it's called Shootout. And if you need it, raise your hand and we'll make sure you get a copy of it. You need one? I think she's getting some. They're all gone? Share. You can just share with the person next to you, and it's no problem. Because when you read the article, you'll realize I don't think it's something that you're going to go post on your refrigerator at home. This is for a purpose. So you can share with the person next to you as we do this. Let us know if there's anyone that cannot see a copy of the article at all over the shoulder of your friend. Stick with us through. Do we want to? Yeah, okay. So I was consulting because we have a break scheduled for you, and I'm sensing that you're getting antsy, and I know it's a long time to sit. We're going to model this one activity, and we're going to do that together, and then you're going to be off in groups to work and do some things together that are a little more interactive. So hang with me for just a couple more minutes, please. So when you hear close reading, that can be it's new, it's different. It's a different way of reading texts. Jackie gave you the example of making a connection and saying, oh, it's the rain, oh, have I watered my flowers? And we've had an emphasis on that in our schools based on research, based on what we know about reading, that we want to make connections, we want students to make connections. But again, the Common Core kind of bumps that up and says that there's more to it. So this article is called, as you see, the title is Shootout. And just remember, the content is a little irrelevant for our purpose. We chose the article because of the structure and the level of text complexity that we wanted you as adult learners to engage in for us to model the activity. So we know that the topic is a little interesting. So we want to start and talk about some of the standards. If you look up here, first we start Anchor Standard 1, Anchor Standard 2, Anchor Standard 3. Anchor Standard 1 asks us to look, and when you get a chance to look into the standards, you'll see this more clearly, and you can also look on your Common Core cheat sheet that we gave you to kind of see the actual wording of the standards I'm referring to. But that Anchor Standard 1 and the reading standards asks us to think about what is the text teaching us so far. And this is where it gets tricky. Okay? So if you look at the beginning of the text and you start reading it, Killer, the last man standing game of water pistol ambush has become a key end-of-the-year ritual in several New York City high schools. At St. Anne's, a private school in Brooklyn Heights, the game lasts 2.5 weeks and is especially ferocious. Okay? If I start reading the first few sentences of that article, and I stop and I can ask myself, what is the text teaching me so far? Okay? Now this is a place where I might start saying, Killer, a game, water pistol. Well, gosh, my kids sometimes like to play with water guns. Oh, I think and now I can start, right, like we said, in the rain, start kind of wandering off into my own connections about what I'm seeing to the article, okay? But the Common Core says, no. Let's look at what the text is teaching you so far. Not necessarily how it connects with what you did yesterday or something you've experienced or what you know, but what is the text teaching you from the text? I might say that it's teaching me about a game called Killer. It's a role-playing game. Kids pretend to shoot each other using water pistols. It takes place in one place, a private school in St. Anne's School in New York, in Brooklyn, New York. Okay, and those are all pieces that I've learned, okay, about this game and about from the text. Okay? It's not about what I know about that game or my feelings on the game. It's another reason we chose the article. I'm sure many of you are sitting here saying, seriously? Really? This is, and I have all kinds of personal reactions to what the article is about. okay? But that's not what we're focused on at the moment, okay? And this teaches our children to look at texts and analyze them closely using a level of textual analysis, okay? Put yourself, this article, again, I know many of you find it a little disturbing, a little questionable, a little objectionable in terms of the activity. Think about a child who says, snakes, I don't like snakes. I don't want to read about snakes. I have absolutely no connection to snakes. I don't care, okay? This is teaching that child, okay, right now I want you to look at what the text is teaching you about snakes, okay? Not that you're afraid of snakes, not that you think they're gross, not that you don't like them and you don't want to read about them, but what are you learning about snakes? Okay, let's focus on that for now. So that's anchor standard 1. When we're going through those anchor standards, for the first thing we do when we read a text is to say, what is this text teaching us so far? Okay? That's the question you want to ask. What is it teaching me so far? Using that close reading, that level of textual analysis. So take a minute and read a few more sentences in. Okay? Turn to your partner, turn to someone next to you, and try to teach them, what is the text teaching me so far? Don't go beyond the first paragraph. Just read another couple sentences, and then turn to someone and say, what is this text teaching me so far? Keep each other on task. Don't let your partner start telling you about how they think this is the most horrendous game ever, and that, making all kinds of connections that way. Keep your partner on task. How many of you struggled there to not have a personal reaction to this text? Yeah. We chose it for that reason. Okay, we struggled with it as well. We kind of said, really? Do we want to bring this article to a group of Catholic school teachers that's talking about this game? But that's why we chose it.
Actually,
okay.
She uses, I said, really?
Yeah, she said that.
Really?
No, we both, yeah. We were worried about that. But this is a structure of text complexity that invites us to have this discussion. Okay, and again, it's also, we wanted you to have to kind of fight through, quote, that emotional reaction that you would have to a text like this, okay? So that you could really begin to struggle and wrestle with the idea of close reading. That close reading involves focusing on what the text is saying. Again, think about that little one that says, really, we're learning about snakes. I don't like snakes. They're gross. They scare me. I don't want to read about them. Okay? I have no connection to snakes, and now I'm out and I'm not engaged. Okay? But we're teaching students to look closely at what the text is telling you. We want to point something out to you on one of our handouts, so I'm going to hand this over here.
I, by the way, have most of my experience in a K-1 classroom. Where are my K-1 friends in the room? How many times have you gathered your students together? You have this great book. You can't wait to read it. And in the beginning part, it talks about, go with me, mom making cookies. And a little one raises his hand and says, I love cookies. Chocolate chip are my favorite. And someone else shouts out, no, oatmeal raisin are much better. And someone says, actually, sugar cookies are better. And before you know it, they're gone, right? They're gone. They're gone. True that. Actually, that's another great story, because I had a 6th grade student teacher who had this wonderful lesson planned around OK for Now, and a very emotional moment, and she practiced and had her voice and everything ready, and she was, like almost a little shaky, and then, so sorry if I offend anybody, somebody in the group tooted, and she lost them. They were gone. Right? This happens. They wander away from the text. Common Core says, bring them back. Bring them back to the text. Bring them back to the evidence. Okay? And so I want to point out to you, as Mary Kate's walking through this activity, your cheat sheet is showing you the grounding in the standards. I lost you with the tooting, didn't I? How silly of me to have brought that up, because now you're out there sharing a similar story about someone when they did that to you in the moment. Yeah, sorry. Darn, I know better. Okay, come back to me. That cheat sheet's showing you, all right, in the literature, whether it's informational or narrative, you're keeping them focused, as I'm trying right now, on the key ideas and details. See that? Then you're taking them into the craft and the structure. And then you're helping them go across texts as they integrate knowledge and ideas. And you're doing that through a range of reading and text complexity. Am I making sense? I'm trying to make sure I'm coming back macro picture on this component so that we're helping you see that those standards, those strands, those threads will go across your work, will go across your day, will go across your content.
The cheat sheet she's on is the back of the...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. So I see some of you looking in the front. It says Common Core State Standards cheat sheet. Turn it over and look on the back.
My apologies.
That's a nice layout of what I'm talking about here with the anchor standards. So that's where she's looking, and that's where you can kind of follow along as we're doing this activity. So we were in anchor standard 1 there in terms of the close reading, okay? Those key ideas and details, okay, and sticking to the text. Okay, and this activity, we're just going to use this article to walk through the next anchor standard now, which is anchor standard 2, okay, in which we ask ourselves, what is this text starting to be about? I love that question. Okay, and that question applies to nonfiction, it applies to fiction, any text that we're reading. That as we're reading it, we stop and say, what is this text starting to be about? Okay, so it's a comprehension check as we're going through. So if I were to keep reading through that second paragraph, and I were to keep reading this article, okay, I might find that the article is starting to be about more than one main idea. Okay? And that's another piece of the Common Core, that we're moving away from what is the main idea of the text and asking students to identify one main idea, which I know is so hard for students and difficult, because if you look at a text like this, there's not one main idea, there's several main ideas. It's a complex text, okay, and that's where students are headed in their reading, and that's where we want them to be. So I might find out that it's about more than one central idea. I might see that it's about the fact that kids can be ingenious, okay, that kids can be ingenious when given a task, that the role-playing game makes them engaged. I might say that one of the other central ideas so far, as I'm reading, is that the game makes kids independent in their actions, okay? As I'm reading through that text, I'll continue with Anchor Standard 1 and Anchor Standard 2 to keep going back. And we want our children to do that. To continue to say to myself, now wait a minute, now what is the text teaching me? Okay, have I learned something new than I did in the first few sentences? And then I would need to go back and say, what is this text starting to be about? And checking those central ideas that I'm finding as I'm reading. Okay, and seeing if a new piece of information makes me change my mind about the central idea. If we look at Anchor Standard 3, okay, and again, look on the back of your cheat sheet on that chart, and you can see we're into looking for the details from the text to support our ideas. Oh, sorry, I have my wrong. And also analyzing the sequence of events, relationships, and connections, cause and effect. Looking for the relationships between characters, the relationships between events and pieces of the plot and the setting. We're looking for those connections, but notice different types of connections. Okay? Not connections that we say, you know, this game is appalling to me and I would never want to participate in it, but connections in the text, that we're sticking close to the text. As we do that, we can see, if we continue to read this article, and if you look down, if you start to kind of skim it down a little bit further, about 3/4 of the way down the page, you see that you're starting to learn about quite a few interrelated individuals. Okay, Willis Cohen, one of the boys, Protel, Lawther, these different boys that are playing a part in this article and that we're talking about what they're doing as part of the game. And they're interrelated, okay? We can see how one person's actions relates to another. So all three of those first three standards are critical to this close reading, okay? All three of these are completed using details from the text as clear support for our points, okay? And if you continue to look now on your sheet, and I'm going to look over your shoulder really quickly, sorry. If you look, sorry, I'm trying to figure out where it's at on your sheet. Anchor standards, there it is, 4, 5, and 6, okay? Talk more about the structure of the text, okay? And the language used in the text, okay? And if you keep reading the text and you're looking closely for those details, okay, you might see that the structure of the text changes throughout the text. If you look at the first paragraph, read that first paragraph, okay? Killer, the last man standing game of water pistol ambush has become a key end-of-the-year ritual in several New York City high schools. It's very informative, right? It's been written from kind of a journalist point of view. It's very informative. As we keep going down the article to the second paragraph, I'm looking for some good massacres early, this year's judge said as the competition began the second week in May. Summoning what his classmates referred to as his inner lawyer, he asked that his names not be used. Okay, now the structure of the text has changed slightly, where we're painting a picture of these characters, essentially, and we're showing them as ingenious students who are engaging in this role-playing game. Okay, so the author uses language to change the structure, and that gets us into standards 4, 5, and 6, so that we can look at those pieces. Look through this text and circle some of the key important words and language that help set the tone for the text. Just take a minute and look through and circle some of those key important words and tone. So what are some of the words that you circled? I'm not going to ask you to share out large group. This is too large of a group. But if you look at some of the words that I circled, okay, for example, if you look in the last sentence of the first paragraph, the word dispatched is used in the same sentence as the word squirtfish, okay? So the author has chosen this language specifically. The word dispatched with the word squirtfish is showing us that these students, these children, are engaging in a role-playing game that they take very seriously. But they're children, and they're using squirtfish, right, to engage in it. So the author is purposely using that language strategically in those sentences to engage us and to show us, to paint a picture of these students, right? That's an example of close reading, okay? Those get us through those standards that you can see on that sheet. So really, again, I hope that you can see a little bit of the difference in terms of, I'm not saying that the squirtfish, you know, my kids like to play with squirtfish, but I'm looking closely at that. We want to give you a chance now to try this on your own with some of that literature that's in the middle of your table that I hope you've been dying to get into, because that literature is engaging. Where'd my friend Jackie go? So to start off this activity, take a book of your choice at your table and try a close read of it. Try some of what we just did. Try a close read of it, working with the people at your table.
I know some of you have not looked at them. I know that some of you might have read them, as I did, across the state of Idaho, right? So it's okay with where you are and where we're going. All right, I'm so sorry. Yeah, it's okay. In this room of very tight spaces. So let me bring you back really quickly to that slide we went to at the beginning of the morning. Remember that there are 4 strands. Somebody help me. Shout out. What's one of the strands? What are one of the strands? Pardon me. Reading. Shout out. What's another one? Writing. You're on your way to being allowed to have lunch. What's the third? There we go. And I'm working on the listening part right now. You're working on the speaking part right now. What's the fourth? Language. All right? Right now, in this activity, we're asking you to dig in a little deeper on the reading strand, and we're going to move into the next strands in just a minute, okay? So you have been, hopefully, at your table, reading some of the literature graciously provided to us by our colleagues in the room. We purposefully made sure, I think, that there was nonfiction and fiction at your table, all right, for a focus in both. Hopefully, what we wanted you to do is to look at those texts with a new lens, where you're thinking about key ideas and details, craft and structure, integration of knowledge, as you're thinking about texts that went literally and figuratively across your table, all right? And then there were different text complexities there as well.
I just wanted to make sure while we were on that topic. So remember, the activity we did before break, the questions you should be asking as you're doing that close reading that get to those standards, that key ideas and details, And notice we were on that standard statements underneath there is where we were when I was saying Anchor Standard 1, Anchor Standard 2, Anchor Standard 3. The structure is kind of difficult to get your head around. But remember, you're asking, what is the text teaching me so far? And what is this text starting to be about? And I heard a comment from a table that, because we did put a mix of fiction and nonfiction, and we modeled this with a nonfiction piece. But those same questions can and should be applied to fiction. Notice the structure of the standards, that they're the same. You know, that we've got the literature, which is the key ideas and details, craft and structure, integration of knowledge and idea reading, and level of text. Same four pieces underneath the nonfiction. Okay? So those same questions, what is this text starting to be about? What is it teaching me so far? Can be asked of any kind of text. So that's what we want you to do in close reading, looking at the language, looking at the interrelation of the characters and the point of view, and that's what Common Core is asking you to do.
And let me back up, if you'll allow me, for hopefully 60 seconds, to say, if you're one of my K-5 people, and you've opened up the PDF that the Archdiocese has provided, and you maybe are like me and you instantly said, how many pages is this? How many do I have to read? And you saw something in the order of 160, and then maybe you were like me and you said, I'm going to close that for now and walk away, right? All right? Maybe you were that person. I wouldn't blame you if you were. Please know, hopefully at the end of the day today, when I implore you to go back and reopen that it's the first, don't quote me on numbers, how many times have I already said, I'm so sorry. Numbers are not my thing. It's the first 20-ish pages that are the standards we're giving you that foundation for today. Okay? It's that first chunk of that PDF that is the foundation of your work. After that, they are what the Ohio State, the ODE calls it model curriculum units. All right? The Archdiocese calls it their curricular units. They're ideas and ways to teach and utilize the standards. Our focus today is grounded in understanding what the standards are. You can choose to use whatever of those units you want, but our focus is on that first 20-ish pages. Does that make sense? So don't let that document
completely overwhelm you. Call me if it does, and I'm going to help you take a deep breath and then go back to it, all right? But the beauty, again, of Common Core, back to our frog hat, right? Frog hat, whoops, sorry, is that we have that fictional piece, the informational piece, and the components underneath it are exactly the same, all right? We're doing the same thing with all text, and we're really going to dig in deep throughout the year on those 10 anchor standards that go with that. So for something that can look so big you can't get your arms around it, it really is centralized and focused. Are we okay with that? Okay, so I'm hoping you looked at your books. I'm hoping you did that close read of at least one, if not more, across the different books. Now, my writing teachers in the room, please do not throw any fruit that's left over at me. I want you to take 60 seconds, 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. Write just a little bit about what you learned from what you read and any process that you used while you read them. Is that true, good reading process instruction? It is not. So that's why I'm worried that I've got a writing teacher out there that's not going to be happy at me. I need this to be a brainstorm, rough draft, bullet point, keywords, whatever you want it to be. All right? What did you read and how did you read it? Does that make sense? Scrap piece of paper, not taking a grade, obviously. What did you read and how did you read it? I think you're such an advanced group that you actually moved to the next stage. And the next stage was to start thinking about the speaking and the listening, right? Because But we're still going to work on the listening part. I'm hoping that your conversations are grounded in what you wrote. Somebody help me out again. Shout out something that you wrote. What did you write about what you learned, or what did you write about your process? I'll call on you. Did you? I have one group over here, if you'd like to join this group, that brought their own snacks. Like, I love a table that brings their own snacks. This was smart. I'm pulling up a chair here. Oh, boys. No boys. Okay, come on, shout out to me. What's something you wrote about what you learned? What? You're panicked? Okay, I'm not dismissing that. I'm hearing that. All right. What else did you write? There's. Oh, sorry.
I've had this a couple times, so if it's okay, I'm just gonna. So the question has been, when you were writing, what were you supposed to be writing about? Okay, and I've had a few people say that. We wanted you to give that close reading a try. Remember that, what is this text teaching me so far? What is this text starting to be about? And give that close reading a try, and how was that process for you? And then write about that process. So again, because you're adult learners, you're teachers, we're not asking you to necessarily reflect on what 20 Big Trucks was about and what you were learning, but on your process as a reader. So we want to hear how that was for you. Did you have to keep pulling back from making connections? Were you having that personal response and you had to remind yourself? And I'm seeing a lot of nodding of heads. So that's the hardest part of this. That's the biggest shift in Common Core.
My friend that panicked, sorry that I'm calling on you, because you were so gracious to be honest, when you were reading, why did you panic? Well, I'm going a little different. So you were reading, but you said you panicked.
Just because I want to make sure it's so brand new, because we're working math and new language arts and a new series in both.
Life is good. She says she's doing new math, new language arts. Life is good.
So it's like making sure, okay, did I cover that? Where did I cover it? Where is it? New series, did it go in this unit? Did it go here?
Thank you for being willing to play along with me. Will you play along a little longer? Are you all right? Okay. My undergrads, when I do this, I worry, I panic them. So tell me about your reading process, because which book did you have? Did you get a chance to read a book?
The Giant.
The Giant. What might what?
I want to have a book about the little girl that spoke women's rights and little girl that did that.
Oh, nice choice. Nice choice. Sorry. She had Brave Girl. Very nice choice, by the way, about women who strike in the early 1900s, historical fiction. All right, let me do a little sales pitch while I'm up here. What was the book about?
About a girl who was had to fight for and was not getting her voices met and had to, fight for things that girls normally wouldn't get.
Okay, so she was fighting for women's rights. When you were in the middle of reading it, because you said when your first reaction to me was you panicked, that you were skimming it and that you were having those personal connections about other things that were in the side of your mind, right? Okay, so thank you so much, by the way. Extra lunch, box lunch on me later, all right? And you've already got the sweet treat, so I can't do anything there for you. Know that this is what students experience, all right? We wanted you to experience what it really means to close read and how it can quickly stop happening, right? Because as I was giving you the example earlier, I start reading and suddenly I'm thinking about, shoot, did I turn on the dishwasher? Oh, wait a minute, did Grant get his cross-country bag ready? Okay, all of the things that distract us from text. Okay, it's just part of life. And so this is why Common Core holds as a central premise. Or, as I think Holy Angels was having a really great conversation about, wait, do we have to let go of personal responses to text? Can we not have students make those connections? we're so sorry if we've begun another myth that I'll have to add to the slides later on, all right? That's not at all what we're trying to say. Common Core is trying to say, all right, students and adults, thank you very much for being my perfect model, can tend to stray from text somewhat quickly, all right? And so it's bringing you back to trying to get really focused on the text and staying with the evidence or the content of the text, all right?
The connections that you made are important, and the connections that children make are important. And this is a myth of the Common Core that you'll hear and that you'll read, that we need, when a student says, I was using the example with the table in the back, it was a book about the forest, and the student says, I've been to the forest, you don't need to say, nope, doesn't matter if you've been to the forest, but that we need to say, great, so I bet you know a lot of things about the forest. Let's see what the text is teaching us about the forest. What are you learning so far from the text about the forest? And so they're still making connections, but like we're just constantly bringing them back because, as Jackie said, the danger is, I've been to the forest. That was a really great vacation. My family and I had a great time, and we went here and we went there, and now we're gone. Right? And that happens. I've seen that happen with readers. You've seen it happen with readers. So we're just constantly bringing them back to look across that text. In that activity that you did there, you just saw the 4 strands. The 4 strands that we've been talking to you about, the reading, the writing, the speaking and listening, and the language. That you just experienced it in doing that activity. That those 4 strands are present in any reading act and writing act that you do with your students. And when you do them with intentionality and you structure your teaching like that, then you can support your students through those complex texts. At this point, we're going to ask you to do a little bit of moving. We already took our break. Sorry, this is what we do. Yeah, we laughed when we were making the structure, saying we had our time slots, and we said we know that this is going to not stay in this perfectly structured time slots, but we're okay with that because we were ready for it. We want to ask you to move into your grade level groups in a moment after we give you some instructions on the activities. Some of you have the standards with you. Some of you don't. I don't know who has what, but if you've brought the standards, those are going to be important to you in the grade level groups.
And my friends, this is going to be messy. So I'm asking, because I know we're tight, and so the gold way to look at it is, isn't it fantastic that we have everyone in a room together to learn and have this common experience? The curmudgeon way is going to be the like, this is going to be messy. And I have my dear friend Matt Sableski in my head who told me, the Carroll parking lot is not a happy place. And as I'm looking around the room, I'm like, as we turn this into a parking lot, this may not stay a happy place. So let's all keep our frog hats on, all right, and hang with each other. What we're asking for you to do is to take some time now, and we're going to go around to tables as grade levels, all right, to kind of dig in to your standards. And I have kind of taken a pulse of the room. Some of you brought them and some of you didn't. So again, if you, as colleagues, would kind of share with each other, those that brought them and those that did not. My 6th, 7th, and 8th grade people, we're going to come to you personally, all right? So don't think we have forgotten you, okay? Stay with me. We're going to ask that you get together in grade levels. I'm giving you all these directions now because once we start moving, it's all over, right? You're going to take a little bit of time to look at your standards. What does this mean for you when you start on Monday with your X number of students? And use this time with your colleagues to say, boy, in 1st grade, this piece is going to be a big shift for me. But in 1st grade, this is something I've been doing for a long time. All right? So take time, as my point, to celebrate the things you already do, because I am thrilled to say, and Mary Kate would be, as I think, to say the same thing. I know a lot of you, and I don't mean that, I mean that I've worked with many of you across the years. I have been in many of your rooms, all right, throughout the year. There are so many things that you're already doing that are inherent to Common Core. You are exceptional teachers. You have given this is your vocation. And so I'm so thrilled to know many of you and know what you do and how well you do it. So please take some time to celebrate that as first grade teachers, as eighth grade teachers, all right? And then shift your conversation, all right, to 4 to 6 things. We don't want the next slide yet, you know that, right? 4 to 6 things that are kind of significant and different for what you want to do this year. Does that make sense? Now, my PK people, I've got some PK people in the room. I would love it for our PK people to get together. Of course, I have my content people in the room. I want you to choose the grade level of your choice, all right? And my PE, my music, my other friends, will you please pick the grade level that you would like to support first? So may I use Gretchen? Thank you for being my friend. Gretchen and I go way back. Gretchen's a PE teacher, and if you liked the concussion idea, let's just pretend for a minute, all right, and you know that you want to do that with 8th grade because they're going to high school next year and they're really going to be in those sports and they need to know that content and those signs and those forms, then would you join the 8th grade group, all right, to think about how you can support the 8th grade group as they move this year. If you are my music friend and you know you want to focus on 2 composers and you know that that might work with something the 6th grade teachers already do, would you join that 6th grade group? Does that make sense? Are we okay?
With the standards, by the way, content area teachers, with the standards, the grade level group you choose to talk with today will help build your understanding of the standards as a whole, because again, of this consistent, nice structure that the standards have across grade levels. So if you choose to talk with the 6th grade group today, because a project like that is on your mind, that's going to still help you with understanding the standards as a whole. And remembering that the content area teachers, as you can see through this type of close reading, are equally as responsible for teaching this to our children as our English language arts people. So we hope that can help you engage in that conversation. I know. So
you see me starting to rub my hair, in my face, I got gray hairs that are instantly coming out. Okay, not that I didn't have plenty already. For Mary Kate and I, all right, because then we can move. We're going to move all around the room the whole time. Can we do it kind of in numerical order, so to speak, right? So we know kind of the area we're in. So for my own knowledge, PK people, preschool people, how many of you are in the room, please? Yep. Okay, that's what I was thinking and hoping. Sorry, ready? The parking lot's not a happy place. I'm moving you. So my pre-K people, when we say move, hold on. My pre-K people, I'm going to put you in this zone, all right? My first grade friends, I'm sorry, how did I go right over kindergarten? My kindergarten friends, all right? We're going to try to central you here. By the way, move tables, move chairs, who cares, all right? Brett, where are you? But be nice to the carpet because it's brand new, all right? Kindergarten people are here. First grade people are here. 2nd grade people are here. Then I'm going to go back somewhere in here for 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, and my 6th, 7th, and 8th grade friends in the back. How do we feel about this? Should I dismiss you by tables? No, just kidding. Okay, here we go.
So just for the next few minutes, we want to shift your conversation now. We know as teachers you have, your favorite units, your favorite novels, your favorite pieces that you've taught in the past. So you could talk about that second bullet point, what do you see as having the biggest impact on your current instruction, and maybe you've done that. But what we want to do is make sure if you did get a little off, or we want to refocus your conversation a little on what do you see from those Common Core standards as having the biggest impact on your instruction. And we're going to come back to why that's important later in the day, that what is that one piece that you feel like you're going to walk away from today and you're going to say, that has the biggest immediate impact on my instruction right now. So think about that as a grade level group. What has the biggest impact? Then importantly, we would like you to talk about your favorite units or projects or books that you study. You love to study frogs. You love to read Daniel's story. You love to read Freak the Mighty. I don't know. We've all got different ones that we do that are our favorite or that our students really enjoy. How were they aligned with the old course of study? And is there a place for them in these new standards? And how will you fit those things in that you feel are particularly strong in your instruction already? How will you fit those in to these new standards? Okay. And can you fit them in? And I think that probably the answer is yes, but what will need to change? How is that going to work? Talk with the grade level team about that. There's a lot of value in talking with your grade level team about this, right? Because you can say, I did this and I did that, and share some ideas across that. So we want to give you just 5 minutes or so to have that conversation, and then we'll come back together and be ready to dismiss for Mass and lunch.
I'm thrilled to have joined some of your conversations. Thank you for letting me pull up a chair. And actually, I couldn't find my colleague because she'd pulled up a chair and was engaged in, I think, a very high-quality conversation. You all had very, very nice conversations. And I think it's always heartening to have the conversations with you and see the match to what we had planned or thought of ourselves before we came today. That you talked with me about the Common Core standards and some themes you're seeing in your grade levels. There are fewer, right? You started looking, those of you who brought them, the units that are in the second half of the PDF, so to speak, that maybe some of you printed or brought electronically. But the core content is in those first pages. That's what you're holding true to. That's what eventually we'll all be accountable for, all right? So if you ever start to feel that overwhelmed, did you see me do it right there where we take that big breath and let it out, all right? Where's my, oh, you've moved. My friend in the room who was panicking, all right? Wherever you've gone, I'm so sorry I've lost you. I'll find you again. Come back to that, okay? They are clear and specific, at least we think so. Some of them get a little more, but they've tried to keep them right there. They are more rigorous, all right? There is no denying that. And I had some really nice conversations with some of you who might be in a school where there are more things that you're dealing with. Your students might not come with preschool experiences. They might not, or more importantly, they may not come with the vocabulary or the actual life experiences that other students get to come with, right? And I totally hear that, and I totally understand that. Know that Mary Kate and I, by the way, work in a Dayton Public Elementary School every other Wednesday. They're going to be held to the same standards too, and you'll watch me get a little emotional about that. Because there is truly, in our inner Dayton public school that we work with, some students that this is going to be hard. It's going to be hard for those teachers. But, let's come back to that piece that I tried to build in the beginning. We truly, as a society, want all of our students, right, at the end of the time with us, to be lifelong, productive citizens. And we truly believe these standards can help us get there. So they're more rigorous. We're upping the bar, but I think it's in good ways. And when you get overwhelmed, please come back to Mary Kate and I's metaphor. Toes wet first. What's next? Where's Mr. Silverwood? What's the next bone in the foot? What bone would I'll come to you later. Ankles, can I just say ankles next? Ankles next, etc. All right? They are measurable. We're not going there today. There's too much to get through today, but through the year, we're going to be talking about that measurability. Somebody got me on the side in a very appropriate way and said, how about third grade guarantee? Third grade guarantee is staring at all of us too, right? In that these are all components. So we need to have that accountability. Where is Jackie? Where does Jackie need to go to make sure, right, that she's on pace, all right? They're coherent, they're vertical, and they're product driven. Are we okay with all of that? Know that one of the things we've neglected to mention thus far is that we gave you a 3-page book list that has some exemplars of the books that are in the room today, and each building is getting the complete list of those books should you want them throughout the year. So as we've mentioned, our friends Amy McDonald, Colleen Gromek helped us pull all the books. They helped us generate that enormous list. Colleen, how many pages is it? How many? 15? 18? Yeah, it's up there. So you can look around the room and see how many times we could copy that without getting fired, right? It's going to each of your buildings, and it'll come to your principals electronically. Please remember that one of the other themes is sorry, Mary Kate, will you flip the next slide? So sorry. Why is this important for you? If you're still my friend who's out there saying, why did I have to come today? Because it's required. And I don't mean today, I don't mean us. I mean this work. All right? Informational texts are a must for students to be successful. Another friend came and told me a story about her son, how he really doesn't like necessarily to read. It's not his first choice. But boy, talk about music, talk about technology, talk about media, now he's engaged. All right? We need for our students to be successful with their texts. Each and every teacher is a part of this. I know I'm seeing still some of my friends out there who are saying, I just want to do my thing. All right, but we need a commitment across the school. They're going to have to process informational texts, all right, and that requires that everyone be willing to sit down at the table together, if you will. Will you flip one more? All right, so before, did I make a mess at your table? I'm so sorry. Where do we start, right? Because in the end, watch me again, take the deep breath, which, by the way, I was doing my entire drive in this morning as I kept practicing this in my head, and that my 14-year-old said, Mom, it's going to be fine. It's so for you. Let me just say, it's going to be fine. We'll take the words of Julia, all right? We're going to start by examining literacy initiatives and next step goals, all right? We're going to talk about units of strength that you already have, build on what we do well, and then look for where we need to go next. All right? Does that make sense? So we're going to break here in just a few more minutes. Don't tune me out yet. All right? Stay with me just another couple minutes. We're going to break. We're going to have Mass. We're going to have some great lunch. When you come back from Mass, when you're getting your lunch, if you're going to Mass, this is the time that we're going to ask you to get together as grade levels and principals in the room and or literacy leaders. We have a folder for each building. Will you send a representative to us at some point after Mass and lunch to get your folder? We do have a few additional rooms because I know it's so hard to hear in here, and I'm so sorry for that. So we have a few additional rooms so that hopefully we can spread out a little, all right? And we want you to have about an hour as a building to start this work. All right, I think there's one more slide. Are you willing? To start the work of what are we already doing that we like, all right? What's going to be our biggest challenge? And what will be our initiatives this year? Again, with a group I was talking about, pick your chunk. Where, as a building, do you want to start? Or some of you are in lower halls and upper halls. Where do you want to start as a lower hall and where do you want to start as an upper hall? That's absolutely fine. This is that site-based piece. Each building is different. Each school is different. And you're all wrestling, we know, with different complexities. So that's why we want you to have time in your, as a building, as a school, to start making some grounded choices that are all about you and what you need. And we'll be rotating again to help you with that. Sorry.
Well, just when you come back from lunch, then you're in your school groups, and there is space in here. There are also some breakout rooms that we have available for some schools to go into in the hallway. So when you are forming your school groups, I'm sure we'll find those places to go. You can also we have chart paper and markers that we'll get out to you to kind of chart your ideas, because of course we want to be able to share that and hear what schools are saying. But the important thing I think about that when you get in your school group, so many people were saying, we're already doing a lot of this, and we know that you are. But so begin with those units of strength. Begin with those pieces that you say, I know I'm already doing a good job with whatever the unit is, whatever the area is. But then take it and look at those Common Core standards very closely. Closely read them, and closely read them along with your unit. And look for those areas where it can be ramped up, okay? The Common Core require that that's what we do, that we're looking at ways to make sure that it's all in alignment with what you're seeing there. So, okay, with that, questions or comments? Okay, have a nice Mass and lunch, and we'll see you at 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock.